What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. What a win. Not perfect, but what a win. Feels good. Feels good to get this win. Yeah, so 3-0 win against Tottenham. We didn't have it all our own way, definitely difficult points in the match. Not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but still really good win. Still really good performance overall. Just really solid. And it really shows this season, because we had some games last season that were similar to this, where it was a little difficult in the first half. We weren't really having our way. We weren't really creating any chances. And in the second half, things didn't get much better. We're still not really creating chances. We're still finding it difficult. And then the other team manages to pick one, and suddenly now we're chasing the game, and they packed it in even more. So good to see that this game turned out differently. First half, a lot of Tottenham possession. We were struggling to get out, struggling to create chances. And then second half, we just come out flying. And a lot of that comes down to Tuchel's decisions. And I want to say, I've gotten to the point now where I feel like I trust Tuchel. I still have my issues sometimes with his personnel decisions. But as far as how he's coached this team and how he's managed this team and brought us to being such a solid defensive force, and not only that, but now we are putting away our chances. We bringing in Lukaku. He's turning us into a complete team. And it just feels so good to see. And even though, I'm still have my issues sometimes with some of the players he picks, I still feel like, what? No matter what team he picks, I'm going to expect a decent performance. I don't expect we're going to win every game. I don't expect we're going to go undefeated. But I expect us to put forth a good performance. And the rare occasion where we don't, I feel like the next game will bounce back from it, because he's just that good of a manager. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to manage the players that he's with. I mean, they're talking about it. The pundits are talking about it. The media's talking about it. You can see the togetherness in this group, and a lot of that comes down to the manager stepped in. Things were a little shaky under Lampard. A couple players being frozen out, a couple players not happy. Tuchel's come in, and it feels like everybody belongs. Aside from the occasional like Barkley or Loftus-Cheek, players like that aren't really involved in the first team, but they're not as important. You want your first team and your backup team to be happy, and it seems like everybody is. So really good to see there. And yeah, his decisions today saved the game for us pretty much. He brings on Conte at halftime, and it just flips the momentum of the game from being mostly Tottenham to now it's all us. And then Timo comes on late, and that provides a little bit more movement up front, and now we're creating even more chances. So yeah, fantastic decision making today from Tuchel. And then we move on to individual performances. Now, most of the performances are bad half, good half. Some of them were okay, some of them were decent, but mostly it's just not a great first half and then a better second half, with some exceptions. One of those exceptions is the defense. They put forth a good performance in the first half, kept us in the game, didn't concede. Kepa actually made a couple decent stops. Still not fully confident, but we didn't have to have him tested today. And I think that comes down to the defense's performance. They did a good job of blocking the shots, did a good job of defending, keeping Tottenham frozen out of our defensive third. And it's just good to see that we have such a solid defense that Kepa can keep a clean sheet against Tottenham. It's a good feeling to have when you're that defensively assured that you don't even have to worry about, well, we got a keeper in that's maybe a little iffy. But with that being said, yeah, he had a couple good stops today. I'm still not confident in him, but it's good to see that he's still able to turn in a decent performance. So hopefully he can keep that up. I know we have the Carabao Cup in the midweek, so there's a chance he could start that game as well. But I mean, obviously Mendy's still the first choice because Mendy's just that good. Christensen on the right side struggled a couple times in the first half, and his main issue comes down to the issue he's had for a couple of years now, and that is stepping out and getting beaten behind. One of Tottenham's best chances that Reguilon wasted came from Christensen steps out into the midfield, upends whoever it was, I think it was Dele, and then he's done. He's not getting back. He's not getting back into position. Ball gets played in behind, and he's out of position. And he does that quite a bit. And again, because he's typically a defender that plays in the middle of the defensive three, he's got to work that out of his game. He's got to work out that I'm going to step into this challenge, because most of the time he's not quick enough to get there and make a good challenge. Most of the time he's stepping in just a little bit too late and he's getting beat for it, whether he's committing the foul or whether it's just a pass around him and he's done. So it's something in his game that's just, sometimes it's hurt us really bad, like the one game against Liverpool where he got a red on Mane, and then sometimes, it's not affected us, like today. Created that one chance, but there were other times when it didn't really hurt us because the players around him cleaned up. But because he's a defender that a lot of people feel like should be building our defensive foundation upon, he's got to improve in that area, or else he's not going to be effective enough in the middle of a back three. Silva in the middle. Can I see his birth certificate? I don't believe he's turning 37 this week. It can't be. It cannot be that he's turning 37 this week. Come on, son. Like, just look at today's performance. This is why you want an experienced defender. I was just talking about it in the Atlanta United talk that I did for my last video. This is why you need an experienced, cool-headed defender in your defensive line, because this is the type of performance you get. It doesn't matter what comes his way. He's calm, he's collected, he's reading the play, he's intelligent, he knows what he's doing. Very rarely do you see him making mistakes. And I love having that. It's such a good feeling to think, yes, we've got Silva in our back line, because it means you're going to get a good defensive performance. And it means the other team is going to have trouble getting past him. You're going to have to overwhelm with numbers to really get a chance. And it's rare to find a defender that is that good at this age. And then also, you get down to the other side of the pitch and he's scoring for us. So, fantastic performance from him today. I think he's actually like more, I think he's closer to 30. I think he's lying about his age, and he wants everybody to be impressed, like, oh, I'm so old, but I can still do it, when in reality, he's not that old. I know what's going on. Conspiracy theories, I'm typing them out. And then Rudiger on the left side, also got a goal today, but another good, solid defensive performance. Still has the wild side to him, still can occasionally just do something crazy, or just kind of like, that was a little odd, but, I mean, overall, he's still really good defender, solid. No real complaints about his defensive performance ever. Like, it's very rare that I have an issue with how he's defending. So, another good feeling to have in your back three. Spilicueta on the right side, kind of the typical Spilicueta wing-back performance. He's getting up in the attack, but he's not quite effective. Occasionally put in a good ball, but he's not as effective as Hudson-Odoi or James in the final third. But he's solid. He's a solid player. He's always working hard. He's always creating opportunities by opening up space for people, providing an option on the wing. I mean, it's something that I want James to get into his game, because James is more talented on the ball than Spilicueta is. But most of the time, Spilicueta, I feel like, is a better option because he works harder than James does. And I feel like it's something that James has got to learn, because the more that he just is sort of there, but he's not doing much, the more that he's not really providing an option, he's made a run and then he's done, the more that he's going to get frozen out of the team, because he's going to get outworked by players that are not as talented as he is, but are just harder workers than he is. And it's something that can be said for, honestly, a lot of young players that come up with a lot of promise. You see them sort of fade out because they start to be like, oh, well, I've got all this talent, I'm one of the best, and then they just don't really work themselves enough, and you start to hear a little bit less about them as time goes on. So I hope he can get out of this rut that he's in. I know it's weird because I was talking about Spilicueta, but yeah, from James' point of view, because I'd love to have him in a game like this. I'd love to have him bolting up and down the line, taking on Reguilon, because Reguilon's not that great of a defender. So you put a good attacking player on him, we're going to beat him every time. But I'd rather have Spilicueta out there right now, even though he's not going to really beat players on the dribble. He's much more assured defensively. He's a much harder worker, so he's going to provide options for you, even if he's not great on the ball. And that's something that I don't think can be traded. I don't think that that's something that you want to take out of your team. So take from that what you will, but that's kind of what I got from the performance today. Is like, he was good, he was solid, but I'd like to have a better option attacking-wise. But it's hard to say that because you look at our other options and they don't really work hard enough. So Alonso on the left side, another typical Alonso performance. good on the attack, providing good options, good crosses in as well. I mean, scored off of one of his corners and constantly created chances from his corners as well. Defensively, little shaky at times, diving into challenges occasionally. And again, it's when you get into those areas where it's tighter, he tends to have a little bit more difficulty because he's not very quick on the ball. So his best game is when he has time and space to create a cross, or he has time and space to have a shot. Because when he has that, he's very, very talented. It's the games where players close him down very quickly, and I mean, Royale on their right side was closing him down pretty quickly. So there were times when he was a little bit out of the game, but he's also clever enough to find open spaces as well, so he can involve himself in the game more. So, but overall, good performance from him. Into the midfield, Jorginho and Kovacic struggled the first half, and you could tell when Conte came on and provided the third midfielder and it was working. It helped them out a bit more because I feel like they were chasing shadows in the first half. So with that third midfielder, it helped both of them be able to, I guess, be a bit more free in there. They didn't have to be all like, okay, well, here's my man and here's your man, and we can't leave them. Oh, there's another man. I've got to go step to him. Now somebody's got to come take him. You come over. They were really doing a good job of moving around, which caused Jorginho and Kovacic to have to move around a lot, and they were really lost at times. When Conte comes on, he's doing a lot of the marking himself. So Jorginho has more freedom to read the pass because he's good at intercepting, but whenever he's having to mark a player, obviously he's not going to be as good at making those interceptions because he's got another job to do. Kovacic, he's a very hard worker, but defensively he can't always read that play. But with Conte in there, now he's free to just sort of chase the ball at his leisure, and he's got enough pace where he can put quick pressure on somebody, and now they're making a mistake. So for both of them, it was definitely a game of two halves. Jorginho, second half, better, like I said, able to intercept. His time on the ball was also increased because Conte is providing another option for him, which means there's another player for Tottenham to mark. Mount in the first half wasn't really providing that link that he normally does, as much as he does, I guess, because he was still doing it. It's just I'm used to seeing him always being an option, and there were times when he wasn't today. So it was a little. I'll get to Mount in a second, but second half, with a third midfielder now, and he's dropped a bit deeper. Now that's a third option or another option for Jorginho to use. So it opens up a bit more space for him. Now Tottenham can't press him as quickly because he's got a quick option out. And so it allows him to be a bit more of the player that he is. So it's in these games where space starts to open up a bit more for him. That's when he looks at his best. And that's when people are like, oh, he's one of the world's greatest. Because, well, yeah, if you give him time and space, he can be very good at distributing. Not the long balls, though. Long balls are still really bad from him. Sometimes I see the old videos of Fabregas knocking balls over the top, and I think that's what people think Jorginho can do, but he cannot do that. His best play comes from knocking it around, keeping the ball moving, keeping the opposition moving. Kovacic, second half, it was a lot more of, like I said, he could pressure quickly. He didn't feel like he needed to stay back. He didn't feel like he needed to mark this one guy. He could just chase people. And when he does that, like I said, with the pace that he has, he's very good at being kind of that, almost that nippy player where you're trying to keep possession, but the guy's just constantly like poking at it, poking your ankles, causing you trouble. He's very good at doing that, being an annoying player to be around. So because he had that freedom, he was able to do that a lot more, and also he was able to get forward in the attack more, and he's very good on the ball. We've seen it several times. So having that freedom to get forward allowed him to show a little bit of that today in the second half, and definitely provided us another good option in the attack. So good to see there. Into the front three for the first half. Mount only had a first half, and yeah, he's I've talked about it before. He's not really started this season very well. He's not bad, but by his standards, he is bad. And that's just because he's set such a good standard for himself where he's a hard worker, he's creating opportunities, he's providing an option, and his work rate is generally helping the people around him to get motivated to keep working. Today I didn't really see much of that, and it feels like he's a step behind. It feels like he's not really fully himself. And I don't know what's going on with that, whether it's a fitness thing, whether it's a mental thing, but I'm a little disappointed. I feel like he's sort of falling to the wayside as a lot of these players are constantly getting better as the season progresses. He's kind of just stagnated at this level that's not quite his level. So yeah, another not great performance from him. Still had a couple opportunities here and there. Still had a couple good moments, good runs. But all in all, you look at his normal performance. This was nowhere near that standard today, and that's part of why he got hooked at halftime. Havertz, another player that could have been hooked at halftime, honestly, and just didn't step up too much in the second half. A little bit better, but all like again compared to the standard we've seen from him, this was not another trying to get the right words out. This was another example of a player not playing up to their standards because he's just normally so much better on the ball, much better at being clever with it, making himself useful on the ball because he's very good at picking out a good pass. He's good at reading the play, seeing what's on. Today, it felt like most of his passes are just right at the defender in front of him, or it's the wrong decision. He's trying to find Alonso in behind, even though Alonso's 2 paces behind the defender. So he's not really reading the play well in this game. And unfortunately, second half, like I said, it just didn't really get much better. It was more in him and Lukaku up front together, and it just felt like Lukaku was growing into the game slowly. Havertz never really did. He was still just sort of there and waiting for the game to come to him, and I would like to see him try to bring the game to him more often. So he was probably the only exception in the bad first half, good second half. He was probably the only exception because I just don't really feel like he got much better as the game went on. And Lukaku eventually did. Didn't start the second half well, and for a lot of it, didn't really feel like he was finding the opportunities that he normally does. But at the same time, I also have to give credit to Tottenham's 2 defenders because I feel like that was kind of their point today, was to mark him out of the game, and they did. It was not until the second half and when Werner came on that I feel like Werner started to make some runs that would draw a defender to him, which means now Lukaku's basically one-on-one with either Dyer or Romeu. And I think in these Romero. Why did I say Romeo? Romero. In those situations where he's one-on-one, I think he wins that battle. It's when they're double teaming him that he struggles because his first touch is good, but then here comes the other defender and pokes it away or something along those lines. So yeah, as when Werner came in, I feel like that's when his play got better. But he did struggle at times throughout the second half and definitely the first half. I mean, hardly saw him. So, but yeah, subs came on. Conte changed the game, obviously. Just his work rate, his energy. I've talked about this before, but I remember thinking, in the Tottenham preseason game, you talk about football, it's a team sport. You can't say, well, one player changes everything. Conte is the exception to the rule. He's a player that anytime he comes on off the bench, anytime he's on the field, things change. We're a better team with him. We're a worse team without him. It's just, he's one of those players. When he is at the top of his game, he changes any team he steps into. And I really hope we can keep hold of him until he decides to retire, because we let him go at even 35. I'm worried that he's going to go to another top club and win them games. So, but yeah, just the ways he changed the game today, work rate just instantly brought up the work rate of the people around him. His availability opened up spaces for other players because now Tottenham have a third midfielder to mark. On defense, we have a third defender to step in, and obviously he's one of the best tacklers in the game. So he's constantly putting pressure, constantly winning the ball back. And all in all, just more desire to close down, I feel like, than we had in the first half. Because a lot of our problem in the first half came to we were not winning the second ball. Tottenham or, our strikers, whoever's winning the first ball, it's not one. It's a 50-50, ball bounces out, and it's always coming to a Tottenham player because they're the ones that are reading it. They're the ones that are getting there first. Conte comes on in the second half. Suddenly, he's mainly the one that's getting to those balls. He's the one that's there or thereabouts, which causes an issue for somebody else. And because he's doing that a lot, now the players around him are starting to get that energy as well, and they're getting to the ball second as well. So it was good to see him come on and change the game for us, because at that point, it basically won the game for us because Tottenham could not get out. They could not create a chance. And then Werner comes on. Obviously, he had the one missed chance that everybody's going to talk about because it's Werner, so every missed chance that he has gets blasted because, oh, Werner just can't score. But, I mean, like I said, when he came on, he created chances for Lukaku with his runs. He draws another defender to him. Honestly, he brings the right back in sometimes, which now opens up space for Alonso. So I really don't feel like people give him enough credit for the runs that he makes and the work that he puts in just because his finishing touch is not great. He does waste chances sometimes because he doesn't shoot well, because sometimes he makes a snapshot decision. He's not always calm in the box. But the work he does outside of that, it's just always so helpful. It's always so helpful to the players around him. He brings the energy levels up in the front three or front two, whoever's with him. You can't deny that that's what he does well. So I really hope. I mean, I have seen more and more people defending him recently. I've seen people talking more and more about like, no, you gotta understand, like, finishing is not his thing, but he does a lot of other stuff well. So I hope he continues to get that type of credit, and I hope Tuchel continues to give him time because I don't want to lose him. I don't want to lose a striker who's that willing to work that even when he's not scoring, he's still busting it. Some strikers when they get to that point where they're working hard but they're not scoring, their heads drop. You look at Murata. He stopped scoring and he stopped working because of it. Werner never stops working. So I want to give him a little applause for that because I think he deserves it. This is where if I could edit videos better, I would just implement some applause sound effect here, but I'm not good at editing, so yeah. But anyways, all in all though, 3 goals, another clean sheet. We're now ahead of Liverpool because we tied them at their place. Interesting that that's the tiebreaker. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird that that's the tiebreaker, but I guess it's also because I think the tiebreaker, I looked it up earlier, is like goal difference, and then if that's the same, goals scored, and then if that's the same, it's like away goals scored, or no, it's head to head, and then it's like away goals scored in the head to head. So because we have 1 away goal and they have none, that's I think what puts us ahead of them, I believe. But whatever the case, we're top of the table for the weekend. Difficult game against Villa midweek against Carabao Cup, and then of course next weekend is one of our toughest so far against City, although they're kind of struggling a little bit, like not, I don't know, they're not quite at the top of their game at the moment, and I think a lot of that is down to they don't really have a striker. So I feel like that's good for us, maybe because we're a good defensive team and they're struggling to get goals. So I feel like that helps us, but whatever the case, I mean, Tuchel's gotten the best of Pep every time, so hope he does it again. But as for this game, that's all I've got to say. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.